What's good, everybody? It's your brother Mad Black, the most dangerous and the most toxic black man on the internet, and I am black up in your face again with some more pro-black commentary. So I did a video last weekend where I talked about being aware about your surroundings and who you're around when you're traveling, and I was specifically responding to this video I saw of a black woman where she was in India and she was saying that the people looking at her were fascinated with her and just so in awe of her black beauty and her black girl magic. And I could clearly see that these people weren't fascinated, but they were more looking at her in like, what in the hell are you doing here? Not fascination. They're more just surprised that you're there in the first place. So just being aware that, when you travel, you want to be safe. Now I kind of wanted to focus a little bit more on the male side of things because you have a lot of passport bros that preach traveling to these other countries just to get women, not for the experience of being in another country or learning another culture or for work and to make money, just for getting other women that are not American, especially not black American, right? So, I just want to tell those brothers that you need to be just as careful as these women out here. Don't think because you're a man that you can handle any type of violent situation. There's still that danger out there when you're around a culture that you don't 100% understand. So you have to be very careful out there. And, the U.S. State Department and the U.S. Embassy in Colombia has been issuing a lot of warnings because there have been a string of murders that have happened with foreigners traveling to different parts of Colombia. So, I have an article here that I'll just read you the headline where it says the U.S. Embassy in Colombia is urging travelers to exercise caution when using dating apps in the country because tourist deaths have been linked to their use. So you have a lot of these guys who go over to these other countries and instead of, I guess, meeting women at a bar or whatever, they actually get on a dating app to meet women down there, and they become the target of either being drugged and robbed or, drugged and killed or kidnapped or whatever. And, so the embassy down there, as well as the travel departments here in the United States, have been warning people about that. And I think this very much applies to the passport bros because that's exactly what they do. They like to go to these countries, get on these dating apps, and find women down there. And you have to be very careful in doing so. Now, I know as soon as I decide to make this video, I'm going to be called a hater. I'm going to be called the dick police and all types of other extremely childish and buffoonish things, as if I'm trying to stop black men from getting their dick wet in other countries. I guess, I don't know what these guys think, but a lot of these males act extremely juvenile anytime you bring up anything serious or criticize something that they're doing, right? So, I'm not here to stop you from traveling. The only thing that this video is talking about is being careful. And I would hope that you're heeding these warnings. And here's the funny part, because I saw a very recent video where this passport bro was telling black men specifically to go down to Colombia because the women in Colombia just love black men, right? And I would say that he didn't give any warnings at all about some of the dangers that are going on down there. In fact, he tried to dismiss them, and I saw a lot of people in the comments section dismissing the dangers, saying that, well, these weren't passport bros being killed in Colombia. These were, this man, this type of man, a white man, an Asian man. So I notice this happens all the time within the manosphere. Anytime any type of negative news comes out about the nonsense that they preach, they automatically excommunicate that individual or that person. So all of a sudden, if something negative happens to that person, they're not a passport bro anymore. They did the same thing to Austin Hollerman when he got chased out of Brazil and ran over to Thailand. they tried to make it seem as if, well, he's not really a passport bro, even though that's what he would put in all of his videos and preach that type of lifestyle 24/7. They tried to excommunicate him and pretend like they didn't know. And I've seen this too, where they pretend like they don't know who the person is, or they've never heard of this person, even though their videos are very popular. They pretend like they don't know that this is part of their grouping. And I understand sometimes, there are people who sound similar to you and you don't want them associated with you. You don't want to be tied to them because of some of the nonsense they might involve themselves in. It's like I can take myself for an example. Like, I know that Dr. Umar Johnson is a fraud and a buffoon, and he causes a lot of trouble, and I don't want to be associated with him because I'm pro-black, right? But I can also admit that he does preach that stuff, and he does make people who are pro-black look bad. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I can still acknowledge myself as pro-black, and I can understand he calls himself pro-black, but I just know he's a fraud, and I always stand up against him. I have no problem talking about someone like that who, or criticizing someone like that, even though we're supposedly supposed to have the same stance. You know what I mean? So I can understand from the passport bro perspective, you might not want to be associated with these screw-ups out here, right? But once again, as far as Colombia goes, I can honestly say Colombia is one of the countries I've never been to. I'll say I've known a lot of women from Colombia, and I've worked with a lot of women from Colombia, but I've never been there. So I can't really speak too much on being there. The only thing I know of it is people I've worked with and who've told me about it, and basically told me out certain places, if I do go, to stay away from. So that's the only thing I can tell you about Colombia. But as the last video I made, I told you that sometimes it's best to understand the place you're in and understand where you're going so you don't wind up in these terrible situations. So I'm going to play a little bit of audio here from a newscast from NBC, where they're basically warning people about Colombia and some of the dangers that happen there, and just some of the different things to look out for if you decide to go there, okay, especially travel there, and especially if you're dealing with these dating apps. Now, if you're dealing with these dating apps, I don't see how you're not a passport bro. I know passport bros don't want to admit this, but that's exactly what they do. They preach that all the time. And every time I've seen a black passport bro get into trouble, it's usually over one of these dating apps. They go down there and use these dating apps, and then they wound up getting robbed or something like that. So let's listen here, and I'll give some more of my commentary as we go along. Make sure the volume is good, and let's listen.
Tonight, an urgent warning for Americans visiting Colombia after a string of deaths in tourist hotspots. The U.S. Embassy in Bogota urging travelers not to use dating apps in the country, writing in a security alert that criminals are using the sites to lure victims, with many U.S. citizens drugged, robbed, and even killed by their Colombian dates. Embassy officials confirming the deaths of at least 8 Americans traveling in Medellin, possibly linked to the apps.
So, one of the times that I actually did do a video about Colombia, I talked about a young black man who told his story about how he was drugged and robbed there. And there have been several stories like this. He's not the only one, because I've seen at least 5 of them where black men talk about being, hanging out with these girls from Colombia, drinking something, and then just passing out, or just losing track of time. And then they wake up and their phone is gone, their laptop is gone, their cameras are gone, and all their stuff is just taken from them, right? So you have to be very careful in these situations where you go on these dating apps, because, you think that you've got it all figured out, but these scam artists and these criminals, they also watch your behavior, and they know that there are men who are, desperate for sex or desperate for relationships or whatever, right? Or desperate just for female attention, who are coming down there, so they take advantage of you. And, when you have a system like that, you got to be careful. I know you always want to talk about the women that take advantage of men here in the States, but you also need to be aware that this goes on in other countries. In fact, sometimes it goes on more so there because of the economic circumstances that they're in. It's easier to hit a lick on you, even though you may not be wealthy, but even you being middle class in the United States and going down there, that's more money than they've ever seen in their lives. So they can easily rob you or kidnap you and ask people to send money or whatever, and you can be in a world of trouble down there. So let's listen some more to this news report here. Let me cue up this next slot here. They do talk about an Asian man who was murdered very recently in Colombia when he was down there. He went on a dating app and was messing with this one girl over and over again, but then he wound up getting kidnapped, and they asked his family for ransom, and when he didn't get enough money quick enough, they killed him. They wound up finding his body with a whole bunch of stab wounds. But, let's listen to some more of this news report here. I'm trying to make sure I get to the right spot. Okay, here we go.
The deaths are linked and said they've seen an increase in reports of incidents involving the use of online dating applications to lure victims, typically foreigners, for robbery by force or using sedatives to drug and rob individuals. Often the reports coming from major Colombian cities like Medellin, Cartagena, and Bogota. Murders of foreign visitors went up by 29% in the latter part of 2023 compared to the previous year, according to the embassy. And
now, what else is going up? The proliferation of the passport bro movement. And I'm going to tell you this, folks, for those guys who are passport bros or who are in denial about these sorts of things. I know that a lot of you think, well, this happened to some other kinds of men, so these aren't passport bros per se, right? But as someone who studies, criminal stats and people who are victims of crime, I will tell you that a lot of times most men don't report these types of incidents. Men don't report usually when they're sexually assaulted or robbed or whatever. They just kind of chalk it up as an L if they survived the incident. So you have that working for you here. I think like if they're talking about 28 or 29% increase in these types of crimes, it's probably more. But there are a lot of men who don't want to admit either they're wrong because of their ego, or they just don't want people to know because they feel embarrassed that they got taken advantage of and they fell into these traps, right? So sometimes men won't report these types of crimes, right? And also, you have to put in the racial factor. If a black person is killed in these other countries, the media and the police there are not going to give a damn. They just find a dead body and throw it in the morgue or bury it somewhere. You see what I'm saying? So you have to be careful of that. I know your life is valuable. I value you, and I don't want anything bad to happen to you. But sometimes these other folks, like they don't value your life the same. So you get killed there, and you just come up missing. Like no one knows what happened to you. You see what I'm saying? And there's no investigation. There's obviously not going to be any media attention here. White media doesn't give a damn if you get killed, or even a lot of social media doesn't care if something happens to a black man. So whether I care or you care is almost irrelevant. The people that you would need to get the word out there to get help for you, they don't care. So you have to be careful with stuff like that. Like, so I understand that sometimes these crimes might happen and it might be more than even what's being reported. You see what I'm saying? So I just wanted to put that out there. Let's keep on listening.
Most of the victims were U.S. citizens. It's a popular destination for Americans who are big contributors to Colombia's tourism industry, making up nearly 30% of foreign travelers in the first half of last year. But behind that beauty, tragedy, and unanswered questions for families like Zhang's, a case where no arrests have been announced, according to that local prosecutor.
So you see, even though his story has reached international attention, there still has been no prosecution. They haven't found anybody responsible. They just found his dead body. You see what I'm saying? So even though this story is getting attention, yours might not. So you have to doubly be careful of the dangers that you might be facing when you travel to these other countries and get on these dating apps. Let's listen to the last part of this. Like, you'd actually interview somebody who works for the government, and they're going to give just some advice as to what to look out for. So let me cue this up, and then we shall listen.
What kind of advice is the U.S. Embassy giving travelers? Because a lot of people travel to Colombia.
Yeah, a lot of people do, that's for sure. The advice actually applies to pretty much anywhere that you're dating. When you find some people online, a lot of it is, if you meet a stranger, go to a public place. We hear that time and time again. Also, tell friends and family your plans, where you're going, details about the person, and even what app you used. This one, though, is more crime oriented. They say don't resist physically if you are being robbed. They say people who do that, they are more likely to be killed. And also, importantly, in pretty much all situations, trust your instincts. If something feels off, just get away. But with all of these advisories and warnings out there, it might be a good idea just to put that phone down, stop swiping while you're visiting Colombia for a little
Good
bit.
advice, Stephen.
Yeah, experience the culture, and go out. Stop inviting random women to your room or letting them know where you're staying at. If you're staying at an Airbnb or a hotel or whatever, stop doing that. Okay, stop. What was the one guy I saw recently where he was actually getting ready to leave, like he had just finished like his vacation there, and he's like, oh, let me have fun one more time. So he goes on some app, calls a girl, and like literally the last day he's there, he winds up getting robbed, drugged and robbed by this female. You see what I'm saying? Stop doing stuff like that. So it's obvious that there are a lot of passport bros out there who do go to these countries, get on these dating apps, who try to find not only just regular women, but actually do try to find like prostitutes and sex workers and whatnot. I don't know why they don't want to admit that. It's better to just go ahead and be honest about that so you can avoid these types of situations. And maybe, for some of these passport bro gurus, maybe you should start preaching, hey, stop messing around on these apps or trying to get sex workers, or maybe look out for these certain things about the women there so you can pick the right one and not just any regular old ratchet from another country. Because I know you guys, a lot of you black guys think just because the girl has lighter skin and long straight hair that she's not as ratchet or criminal minded as some of the crazy females here, or that they're not as money hungry as some of the females here, or that they're not trying to take advantage of you like some of the females here. I know you think that. I don't know why you think that. I don't know why you have this blind or you have like these blinders on and this weird mindset where you think that you can't be touched in these other countries, or that all these other women around the world are all passive and altruistic, and it's only the American women who are bad. I don't know why you think that, but you need to stop that so in order you can save your life and just be more careful. Now, once again, I know once I make this video, even though I was very fair and, more concerned about people's safety, and I never told someone not to travel, there's going to be idiots that come here and call me a hater and, like I said, the dick police, and will deny that these people are passport bros or whatever. I know the bullshit is coming, but just if nothing else, when you travel there, at least have my voice in the back of your head that's just saying, be careful. Okay? No one's telling you you can't do what you want to do. All right? This is not me trying to clamp down on you and tell you not to go there or whatever. Be careful where you are. Think a little bit. With the head on your shoulders, not the one between your legs. Okay? I know sometimes that when you're young, especially, that urge to just listen to your penis is very strong. But listen to the mind, the one that's on top of your shoulders up top. Okay? So anyway, folks, let me know what you think about this in the comments section. I very much like to hear your opinions on this. Anyway, Mad Black, and I will be back with my foot on the devil's back.